Hey everybody, welcome back. Here today to show you what I think is an airplane that can really make you actually become a better sim pilot. It's the American Champion Super Decathlon. It's a 180 horsepower tail dragger aerobatics trainer. I think if you take a little time to learn how to fly this airplane properly, get your patterns and your landings down in this airplane, you can actually become, basically what will happen is every other airplane that you fly in the sim is going to be so much easier. And it's not because this is a difficult airplane to fly, it's just that it's an airplane you have to fly with precision to get the results you want. It's a very nimble aircraft. It's very responsive to control inputs, and that's because it is an aerobatic trainer. And so if you're doing things like loops and barrel rolls and hammerheads and all this kind of stuff, you obviously need an airplane that is going to react to the control inputs that you make. Same thing is true when you're flying patterns and approaches and landings. You've got to be smooth, coordinated, and consistent with your control inputs and your power changes to get this airplane to react the way you want it to. Not like flying a Piper Cherokee. It's not like flying something like that. Cessna 172, 152, Piper Warrior, and the Sim, these are all training aircraft. They're built to be easy to fly. This aircraft, again, is not difficult to fly. It takes more precision. And also it being a tailwheel aircraft with no flaps, no less, is going to add to the challenge. Now, the fact that it has no flaps is actually not a really big deal. It can teach you some really neat things about landing airplanes in particular. And with the updates that we got, the ground physics updates that we got after, I believe it was Sim Update 15, that changed the ground physics in Microsoft Flight Simulator, that really opened up the world of tail draggers. So let's first of all take a look at the different variations of the aircraft that are available. There are three. There's one analog cockpit and two digital cockpits. There are three different variants of the Decathlon. There is the analog version, the GNS 430 version, and the GTN 650 version. This analog version has a panel layout that is for local aerobatics training. This is not a cross-country aircraft. Does not have a heading indicator, does not have an attitude indicator. This is your local sightseeing, your local, well, it could be a local sightseeing aircraft, but a local aerobatics trainer. And then the GNS 430 and the GTN 650 version are both glass cockpit versions of the aircraft that have the GNS 430 and the GTN 650 respectively. Actually, there's a ton of liveries for all three versions. I actually particularly like this version, the coral version, and that's the one I'm going to fly today. So let's hop in the coral version of the aircraft. Just a quick look at the analog panel. Oil temperature and pressure here. This is your G meter, your accelerometer. This tells you what your positive and negative G's are when you're doing aerobatic maneuvers. Here's your airspeed indicator. These are the entering speeds, the maneuvering speeds for the various aerobatic maneuvers that this airplane is approved for. Altimeter, you got your radio stack, your transponder, and the GNS 430 over here. Manifold pressure, fuel flow, Hobbs meter. This is the one every pilot hates. Your amps, this tells you, the electrical system, what you're running on the electrical system, what the load is. This is your engine RPM, turn coordinator, and your vertical speed indicator. Right here is a click spot, so you can add the pilot and co-pilot if you want to. Let me turn around, I'll show you these two. Hello, there's a little close-up for you. A little too close, really. So let's get rid of the pilot and co-pilot. You can shoot off smoke when you're doing maneuvers. It's kind of neat to see. Cargo net, this is your harnesses, tie downs, and GPS swap. If you have the GTN 650 from PMS, you can use that in this particular airplane. We put this away, come up top here, you've got all of your fuses, you've got your landing lights, your strobes, nav lights, avionics master switch, and your two electrical switches. Come over here, this is actually clickable. This is a clickable clickable light. Apparently I'm not clicking it the right way. But you can, this is a map light that you can turn on and off. Your left fuel tank, we look over here, you'll see your right fuel tank. And so this is the analog cockpit. You can see it's, you know, got the mixture prop controls. It's got, this is your throttle over here on the left. This is your carb heat. These are your vents and your heat. And here's your parking brake. So that's all the controls here in the analog cockpit. As opposed to the analog version, G meters right here, but you also have a pretty advanced, this is actually the exact autopilot that I have in my Cherokee 180 in real life. You've got all the engine controls and everything over here. And then you've got the glass panel and the transponder and the GNS 430 here. You've got company here behind you. You can get rid of it by clicking on this click spot here. Get rid of the co-pilot. And now let's take a look. Let's power up the airplane so that we can look at the avionics. Really nice Garmin stack. And let's get a little closer here. And so you can see you've got your navcom, all your engine instruments here on the left side. And so this is basically what you're used to as a glass panel for the airplane. GNS 430 over here. And so this version of the aircraft is actually, and I really love, by the way, this is a G5, and I've got one of these in my airplane too, in my real life Piper Cherokee. And this is a USB port if that's what you use if you have an iPad, if you need to power an iPad in your aircraft. So what this is the Garmin G3X glass panel. This is all touchscreen, which is phenomenal. You can touch here on Princess Juliana. You can pull up your charts. I would have to set up my Navigraph, which I haven't done. But really a very interesting setup, and a really, really nice glass panel, touchscreen glass panel, and your G5 backup. So this version of the aircraft is a very capable cross-country aircraft, and we'll get into this a little bit when we go flying here. But one of the interesting things about this plane, in addition to being an aerobatics trainer, this is also a phenomenal backcountry airplane, because it's got a 180 horsepower engine, and it's very, very nimble. It's not twitchy. It is very, very nimble, very responsive control, very responsive aircraft to control inputs. And that's because it's an aerobatic trainer. It has to be very responsive to control inputs. So an airplane that climbs very well, goes 160 knots in cruise, 150, 160 knots in cruise, and very responsive to control inputs. Really, really nice backcountry aircraft. And so we'll get into that here as we go flying. All right, let's get started with our flight here. We are in Saba. We're going to take a trip down to St. Eustatius, otherwise known as Statia. One of my favorite little airports in the sim. First things first, I want to make sure that my co-pilot is gone, and they are. No offense, co-pilot, just don't want you there. All right, rotating beacon on. Mixture and prop full forward. Master switch on. Avionics master on. Ignition switches both on. Wait for the G3X to come up. Toes on the brakes, because I want to be able to see the engine instruments. Toes on the brakes, and let's take a look outside. Let's make sure there's nobody out there to kill or maim, and there is not. And you hold down the engine starter button there a little bit. And that's what we got. Good start. I'm going to bring the manifold pressure up to about 10 inches. And we will continue here. And one of the nice things about this G3X is, first of all, it's touchscreen, which is just fabulous. I can't stand having to deal with turning knobs in the sim. So we'll go direct. Let's go TNCE and we'll enter. And there we go. You can see that comes up on the screen here. We'll go transponder squawk altitude. It's so nice having digital instruments here. So nav and strobe lights coming on. My toes are on the brakes. We will lean the mixture here just a little bit. I've got the headphone simulation on because I was flying the that's the brakes. Brakes are working fine. I've got the headphone simulation on because I was flying the 737, so you're not going to hear much of the engine inside the airplane itself, but that's because of the setting I have. And one of the neat things, so that I'll talk a little bit about that thing right there once we get going. Don't quite know how to use it, but I do know what it's for, and it's really pretty neat. Let's set our altimeter the cheap way and come out here onto the runway. Landing light is coming on. For some reason my landing light doesn't work in my Honeycomb Bravo, or my Honeycomb Alpha, not quite sure why. A bit of a crosswind today. But one of the things about flying, let's take a quick look. Final approach course looks clear. One of the things about flying a tailwheel airplane is you're flying that airplane from the moment you leave the parking spot until you tie the airplane down. And you can see I've got a full right crosswind correction in here because the wind is coming from my right on the runway, and if I don't have that crosswind correction in, I can very easily get tipped right over. And you can see our destination right down there behind us. And it's nice having the digital representation on the G3X because you can't really see over the nose that well, and so it's nice to be able to see on the G3X display what's actually going on here. We'll turn that. Now we got to put a left crosswind correction in, and you can see that I'm holding that full left crosswind correction. Mixtures and props full forward. There are no flaps for this airplane, like we said again. So about 60 to 70 knots, we'll call it 70 knots, is going to be our liftoff speed. So this is a tail dragger. Bring in the power nice and slowly. Power's coming up. Engine instruments are looking good. And let me push the nose over a little bit. And boy, it's tough with the crosswind. That's my fault. That's not the airplane's fault. And it's partly Microsoft's fault too, because first of all, I'll come back here to 25. It's difficult to get. That's one of the things that still is not real good in the sim is the crosswind, the aileron correction of crosswind on the ground. It's not real good in the sim. So, got to put in a little bit of right rudder here in the climb. And our destination is basically right off the nose here, but we're going to do a little bit of fun and games here once we get up to about 3,000 feet. And just adding in a little bit of manifold pressure as we climb. I'm going to pull a little bit of the prop RPM back. And you can see you've got to keep the ball centered to get the airplane to fly correctly. So 2,100 feet climbing 3,000. And like I said, you get really great, there's St. Bart's over there, you get great view out of the airplane. 2,600 climbing 3,000. And so we'll get up to 3,000, we'll do a little bit of horsing around here. 2,800 climbing 3,000. And this little device over here is so these are 45-degree angles, 90-degree angles, obviously. That's to help you bring the power back to manifold pressure back to 23, bring the props back to 23. That's to help you keep your reference to the ground, to keep your reference to the horizon when you're doing maneuvers in this airplane. And so let's see here. It's we're still climbing. Let's trim it out here a little bit. And we are good to go here. I'm going to do just a little turn, and you can see how quickly and kind of precisely the airplane reacts to control inputs. And one of the things that I really like about it, I did a video one time on controls being too twitchy in the sim and how to fix that. This airplane is responsive but not twitchy. It is, and it's a really fine line to walk, and they've done it absolutely beautifully in this airplane. And we're going to come around here to a northerly heading, a 360, and that's just going to make it a little easier for me to keep track of things while we're doing maneuvers here. So here we are in a northerly heading. So let's see if we can do a 60-degree right-hand turn. And I can't tell you how fast this thing will get over on that turn. It's unbelievable. You can see we'll do a 360-degree turn here. Let a little back pressure out because we are climbing. And we'll roll out on our nice northerly heading here. Not quite 60 degrees. So 45 degrees is the standard for the private pilot check ride. 60 degrees is the standard for the commercial check ride. So we're back here on our northerly heading. Now let's try a little bit of aerobatics. Watch this. Watch how quickly this thing will roll. See that? I mean, that's pretty... Alright, let's try one to the right. And it's not easy to get it to come out right level again. Try another one to the left here. Oopsie. See that? I'm turning too far through the loop, or through the roll. And back on our northerly heading here. A little bit of nose down trim. Alright, let's try this one again. See, I underturned that one. Try one more to the left, and I'm finding that I wind up diving when I do these rolls, but it's tricky because I feel like if I pull the yoke back during the roll, it doesn't really help with the vertical speed. I'm not an aerobatic pilot. I don't know anything about aerobatics. So if you do, you're going to be screaming at your screen right now. But let's try another one to the left here. Not too bad. Not too bad. So for this next one, let's go props up to 25. Let's bring some power in here. And let's go this way. And what's cool about this, you can look up through this here, Ooh, that's not what I meant to do. Alright, I gotta pull the power out here. Anytime you're going nose towards the water or towards the ground, pull your power out. And we'll bring the power back in here. Let me get away from Seba. We'll bring the power back in here. And we'll head this way a little bit. And we'll do some more maneuvers. So it's just, it's fun. It's fun just to goof around in. Get down, and it's just, I can't tell you, it's very, very precise, the controls, but it does not feel twitchy, which is really pretty neat. Alright, so I'm gonna go full forward on both. And let's just pull straight up. Right through the horizon here. So, you know, I've got myself... I keep getting myself off center here. And I wonder if that's because I am not coordinated. See that white ball in the center there has got to be in the center, and if it's not, you are not flying correctly. I don't believe this has aileron trim or rudder trim. I'd be surprised if it did. You could theoretically trim that out. But let's get back up to 3,000. I'm gonna do my next roll here, or my next loop. I'm gonna concentrate on keeping that ball centered and see if that doesn't help. Alright, here we go. Manifold pressure all the way forward. Let's build up some speed here. And the speed for a loop? I can't see it. Alright, so let's go up here. There we go. It's a little better. That's a little better. Pull the power out as we're coming down here. Nice and easy on the controls because I don't want to pull the wings off. Now bring my power back in. Lost about 500 feet there. Alright. Whoa, lost my orientation there. Alright, so as you can see, it's a pretty interesting airplane to fly. And I am definitely going to be spending some time learning how to fly aerobatics maneuvers in this airplane. The other thing you can do in this plane, instead of going all the way around, you can do this. I gotta bring up my vertical speed by pushing the nose down, or pushing the nose forward rather. You can fly along at this speed, or in this attitude, and you can fly this airplane inverted for up to 2 minutes. But keep an eye on your oil pressure. Keep an eye on your airspeed. Alright, we'll come back around here. I'm telling you, this is a fun little airplane to fly. I've never flown a plane inverted before, ever, in any simulator, in any you know, situation, and that's a pretty weird thing because your control inputs are obviously opposite of what they would be. So we'll come back up here. So the other kind of neat thing about this plane is that it is with this cockpit, and it's got a really nice autopilot, as I was talking about. Really nice autopilot. As a matter of fact, let's go flight director on. Flight director's already on. Nav mode. And let me see if I can do this with my honeycomb here. And let's engage the autopilot and see what she does. Let's see here. See if we can get heading mode here. There we go. So altitude select, let's call it altitude select, let's call it 2000. Oh, we'll call it 2500. And go. There. So yeah, I mean, it's got a really nice, very capable panel, and awesome visibility outside the airplane. So let's disengage the autopilot. Now what I'll do is bring manifold pressure back here a little bit. And we'll start heading in for our approach. Now the other thing about tailwheel airplanes, of course, is that they are you have to be much more precise in landing a tailwheel airplane than you do in landing a tricycle gear airplane. And you'll hear people talk about conventional gear aircraft, and you would think, I mean, for most of us, a conventional gear you would think is a tricycle gear, like the two main gears and then the one the nose gear, right? That to me is conventional because that's what I, you know, grew up with, that's what I know. But actually, conventional gear is tailwheel. Because tailwheels that's how airplanes were built to begin with. So I am making no promises about this being anything other than marginal here, but bug our runway heading here. And just this G3X is just fantastic. Really, really nice. And maybe, am I correct on the runway heading on this one? I might not be. That might actually be runway 6. I think it is. It's actually 624. Roll this around here. But the big thing with landing tail wheels well, which I am unlikely to demonstrate today, by the way, is to make sure that you land, that the airplane, the longitudinal axis of the airplane, in other words, this axis right here, has to be parallel to the landing surface, parallel to the runway. And if it's not, you're gonna have a tricky time landing. And one of the things they say about landing a tailwheel airplane, and I just lost my avionics. Yeah. Okay, now I get it. Now I get it. That was my fault. I didn't turn the alternator on. So once again, this airplane does not have flaps. And one of the things they say about the pits, landing the pits, one of the other aerobatic planes available in the sim, is that you drop a brick out the window and follow it down. This airplane is different. You've got to get about 400 foot per minute descent rate and 80 knots. That's what we're looking for. There's 80 knots. I'm going to trim for that airspeed and then adjust your power to get the vertical speed that you want. So not looking too bad here. It feels like a bit of a right crosswind. Vertical speed is good. Airspeed is excellent. So get some mechanical turbulence here off the ground here, and then once you have the runway made, I do about now, you pull the power all the way out, manifold pressure all the way out, and just follow that airspeed down. And keep the nose forward. Keep the nose forward. Don't get jumpy on the rudders. Oh, S turns. S turns on the runway. So... And honestly, so let me lean the mixture here a little bit for taxi. And so that was a decent land. It wasn't too bad. But what I'll tell you is, as we open the window here, lean the mixture a little bit. But what's cool is that did not feel. I've had the feeling on. In this simulator of being on a runway and you don't really have control of the airplane because it just, there's no precision to what you're doing, right? There's no precision to the controls, right? This airplane does not feel like that. Yes, first of all, I bounced that landing, but second of all, I was, clearly snaking down the runway left and right. But it wasn't because the airplane wasn't possible to control. It's because I wasn't doing a very good job of doing that. And it's hard to describe, again, but the difference is the feeling of very responsive controls as opposed to twitchy controls. This does not feel twitchy at all. I'll open the door here. No? Okay, guess not. It does not feel twitchy at all. It just feels very responsive. And I bet you, with a little bit of practice, I will be able to... I just realized I did something very, very poor on that landing. With a little bit of practice, I would be able to get to a point where... Whoopsie. Make sure the idle cutoff. Why did that just happen? Alright, well, talk about shutting down, huh? Alright, so... Oh, because I probably didn't have this. So what happened is I didn't turn the alternator on at the beginning of the flight, and so I burned the battery out. Or ran the battery all the way down. So when the avionics came back up, it was running on a dead battery, but it was being powered by the alternator. So once the engine quit and the alternator is no longer turning and the battery is dead, everything died. So that's 100% my fault. It has nothing to do with the airplane. Turn everything off. That is pilot error there. But I guarantee you, if I spend a little time flying this airplane, I'm gonna get much, much better at controlling the landing. And that's the thing, is you have to be, when you land, this axis of the airplane has to be straight down the runway. You can't be like, if this right here is the runway center line, this right here, and I land like this, pointing off to the side, I'm gonna go off to the side and I'm gonna put in some rudder to get myself back over here, and I'm gonna do what I just started doing, which is, you know, snaking back and forth. And in a tail wheel, what happens is the natural desire of this little wheel right here is to be in front of the airplane. That's where that little wheel wants to be. And so if you give it half a chance, this thing will spin right around. And they call it a ground loop, when you essentially spin the airplane around in the opposite direction of which you intend to be going. And I don't think I came too close to doing that right there, but I think if I had actually been in this airplane, that would have been an uncomfortable feeling at the very least, that little landing right there. But in any event, this is the Super Decathlon from Hangar Studios 713. As I said at the beginning of this video, in my opinion, this is an airplane that can make you a better pilot. If you learn how to fly this airplane with precision, you learn how to make good patterns and good landings in this airplane, anything else you fly in the sim is going to feel like cake compared to flying this. And again, not in a bad way. It's not that this airplane is hard to fly in the sense that it's you know, difficult to control. It's just very precise and very responsive and very nimble. So you've got to be very consistent with your control inputs, very smooth, and make good landings. Otherwise, you're going to have difficulty. Really, really fun airplane, available from ORBX. I believe it's around, let me not say anything and be wrong about that. I think it's around $22 US, something like that, $22, $24. And I'm telling you, you know, for this airplane, it's absolutely worth that amount of money. And with this beautiful G3X full glass panel, you can really do some fun things with this airplane. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would just absolutely encourage you to go out and get this airplane. You're gonna love it. And hope you guys are doing well. Have a great rest of your day.